shock. Spotify CEO threatens to drag Sussexes into court for stealing $18 million. Revoke all studio stuff. Spotify CEO asked to revoke all studio equipment at Sussex's house after canceled deal. Sue them for stealing. When Meghan Markle and Prince Harry officially abandoned their prototype podcast after their Spotify deal collapsed, one executive at the streaming giant suggested the reason for failure is because it does not satisfy the customers. The Duchess of Sussex is the host of a 12-episode podcast, yes, only 12 episodes. Last year, the show's stated aim was to investigate, dissect, and overthrow the labels that try to hold women back, supposedly. Now, Spotify's chief executive has shed light on why he felt the podcast was not a success and why the famous pair may have been let out of their £18 million podcast deal. In an interview with the BBC, the Spotify boss said, "We think there's a need for new innovation here. We thought we could come in and deliver a great experience and that would both delight consumers and give new creators some avenues," he continued. "The truth of the matter is that some worked and some didn't. We're learning from them and we're moving forward, and we wish everything and everyone that we didn't renew the best success that they can have in the future." He was speaking to the BBC's Zoe Kleinman, who asked him about whether the Sussexes' 12 podcasts over 2.5 years was worth £18 million. She said his reaction made her very uncomfortable. The Sussexes were officially dropped from the Spotify deal in June after a series of circumstances after the deal collapsed, with the Sussexes attempting to gain exclusive copyright ownership of the name Archetypes. But after repeated requests, the pair were denied a license by the USPTO because the title could cause confusion with another existing trademark. Spotify's lawyer is very angry because the Sussexes over the past 2 years have only made one very mediocre episode but earned a few million. Spotify had to give an explanation to its investors about why it hired the Markles, and one of its executives even had to give an explanation about it in Congress. Because there's a lot of conflict in the music world about giving them more rights and million-dollar contracts. The two of you cannot do anything worthwhile. The Spotify-Netflix deal was murky from the start. The two sides have been in litigation for a year because Spotify wants their advance money back. However, Harry and Meghan were far too scared to return to court with them. Spotify's investment in Montecito's home studio was recovered much more successfully by a tour mishap, including a live reenactment of the podcast mishap. Recently, some neighbors sooner or later saw a truck arriving at the royal couple's residence to transport expensive video equipment. If signing a contract is not agreed upon by both parties, it's likely that Meghan and Harry will have to go to court. Spotify's website launched further attacks through the media to criticize the Sussexes' information and the podcast. Bill Simmons, head of the podcast innovation and monetization at Spotify, condemned the couple in an episode of their own podcast. They called them grifters. He said that's the podcast they should have launched with them.